Okay, so today we are starting our next mini lecture, and this is actually one of the most important and I would say challenging topics that we will address in this class, and this is the essay writing topic. So moving on from the English 037 class into the English 047 class should be the focus for learners who are still working their way through this material. And one of the reasons why I decide to write an essay right at the end of the 037 level is because you will need to write probably 2 or 3 essays in the 047 class. So this is really the test of all of the skills we've been building over the last 8 weeks. We've just got 2 weeks left here in our class, so I need to really see where you guys are at. So we're going to challenge this essay level of writing in order to see if you've got the skills aligned up to move on to the next level. So this is mini lecture 53, and today we will be focusing on the introduction of our essay. So as I always state, when you're starting the work on your essay, you should always go back and reread the essay prompt before each writing session, and that's just to keep you focused. So let's take a look at the essay prompt. Writing an analysis essay about the alchemist. Write an analysis essay about the alchemist. This essay will be written in APA format, which means that it will be double-spaced, use APA citation support, and follow a structured essay pattern. Each main body paragraph should have at least 2 to 3 citations that provide supporting evidence to your main ideas. The length of the essay should be 600 to 900 words. We will be working on this writing project over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and it will account for a whopping 20% of your final grade. So we could also add here, and this will be part of the essay prompt you should be using to help guide you through this writing process. Because this essay is an analysis essay, you will investigate the novel through a 3-window lens of analysis. And that's important for us to point out because we've been working with that 3-window lens throughout the last several weeks, right? And basically, that means that you're going to want to have a level 1 element that you want to investigate. You're going to have a level 2 element that you're going to want to investigate. And then you're going to talk about one of the major themes that jumped out of the novel. And if possible, now this is where the planning comes in and the thinking, the deep thinking comes in, those 3 should be connected. And they should kind of lead from one to the next in a natural and smooth progression. So we're going to jump straight into the introduction process here. Now, I haven't written anything yet. I'm going to be doing this directly here on the fly. So there will be some thinking involved in it, right? And that's a natural aspect of writing an essay like this, is that you're going to have to, sometimes you'll just be staring at the blank screen or the blank page until the ideas emerge, right? Now, when I'm doing my introduction, I always start with the thesis statement first, and the reason is because the thesis statement is the beating heart. That's the metaphor I used to describe it in our last mini lecture. It's the beating heart of your entire essay, and it will make clear to the reader exactly what you want to discuss and how you're going to go about discussing it. By that I mean what parts, like what component pieces will lead you in your discussion. So every thesis statement is composed of 2 parts. So I call it the thesis punch plus the guiding list. And your thesis punch can also be called your statement of purpose, right? So basically, it's saying what you will argue in your essay. What are you going to talk about? And then your guiding list is essentially going to be the topics, in this case, the 3 topics you will address in your main body paragraphs. So, oops, perfect. So now I'm going to start the writing process. So Santiago's journey tests his character and ultimately forces him to transform to achieve his personal legend. Hmm. So let's see where we're at here. And quite often when you're doing a thesis statement like this, you will need to reread it or talk yourself through it, um, just to see if it makes sense and if you're on track. Now, also the other thing that I should mention is because we're writing this essay through the drafting process, you're not married to any of these ideas, and as you're working, if you realize you want to change one of the paragraph topics, you can easily go back and alter it and edit it, right? So we have to keep our minds open to the fact that the ideas might change, and that's a really important thing to remember when you're writing. So let's look at what we've got so far here. Santiago's journey tests his character and ultimately forces him to transform in order to achieve his personal legend. Okay, so there we go. I've got my thesis punch sounds fairly strong. So I'm going to talk about Santiago, his character, and how he changes through this story, and how his personal legend is kind of drawing him forward towards that big change, right? Excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold here. Okay, moreover, his progress to realization can be tracked through character development. So that would be main body paragraph 1. Now we've moved into our guiding list, right? Omens. So this is going to be the level 2 element that I want to discuss. And the theme of, how can I state this? Okay, so now remember, we're not married to this thesis. We can edit it, we can change it. But what are the strengths about this thesis? Okay, first off, it follows our thesis formula. We've got our thesis punch, we've got our guiding list. Okay, so the thesis punch is the first part of the sentence up to the semicolon, or up to the academic link here, the transition piece. Then um, we've got our guiding list. So his progress to realization can be tracked through. And then we've got our 3 points here: character development, omens, and the theme of achieving potential. So this is a fairly strong thesis because it follows our link. It also addresses the essay prompt correctly, so up until this point, right? So we're happy with this. We're willing to work with this, okay? So that's the first part that I like to do. Now remember, the thesis statement will actually come at the end of the introduction, but I think that because it's so important to setting up the rest of what your essay is going to talk about, that we need to write it first. The next sentence we need to challenge to write is the hook sentence. And the hook sentence, just as a reminder, it does just what it sounds like it does. It's there to capture the readers and to draw them into our essay. So the hook sentence should be something that's a little bit, I like to use the word pithy, which means kind of short and clever. It might not be completely obvious in its own, if you just were to leave it by itself, it might leave the reader kind of scratching their head. And there should be some hint or some clever metaphor or some sort of foreshadowing into what the rest of the essay, but also what the book is going to talk about. So in my opinion, the hook sentence is one of the most difficult sentences to write powerfully. So I like to wait until after we have our thesis statement. So let's just actually, we're going to bump this down just so that I can have the thesis at the top of the page to look at while I write my hook sentence. And now one of the things that I want to write about in terms of hook is, again, it's got to kind of capture this idea of transformation, because I think that Santiago's character, this is one of the central things that the novel is trying to address, is the idea of change, the idea of pushing ourselves towards our potential. And as you'll notice, that is basically what the thesis has already pointed out that it's going to focus on. So how then can I write a powerful hook sentence that will also incorporate the idea of this kind of this capture the reader's attention and lead them towards where my thesis is going to end up, right? So there we go. This is kind of, so there is a connection here, right? We have this legend of the phoenix, that is a mythical creature that emerges from the ashes at the end of one version of itself, right? And if we think about it, if we think about what my thesis has hinted or predicted, I'm also talking about this idea of transformation. So that's part of what the phoenix metaphor is going to achieve here, right? So I'm gonna work with this. Now also, we know that the next thing that we need to do is we need to write 2 to 3 background sentences to finish off our introduction, and these sentences should provide some sort of relevant background information about the story, the author, or the connecting context of the work. They should be connected to your thesis, but they should not give away information that you will discuss during your main body paragraph. So this is kind of the trickiest part. Now, I'm just going to keep writing them here right after my hook sentence because I'm kind of in the groove. So let me just keep writing. I'm not gonna be talking during this writing because I really want to try to get this banged out quickly.